Morning, and welcome to the most positive morning of your weekend, of your day for sure, and hopefully your week and into next week. And I'm sure tomorrow morning will be just as good, if not better, but today is going to be the best morning so far. And thank you, everybody, for joining. And this is Freedom Coffee, where we focus on acknowledging the freedoms that we have and celebrating them. And we work towards gaining our expanded freedoms in the future. And that's kind of what today is going to be about. For those of you who live in Toronto, there will be a freedom rally, which I will be speaking at for a short little bit. And it's going to be quite big, lots of people. And it's just a good way for us all to come together and remind ourselves about all the good things that are going on in the world, that there's so many people who wanted to embrace the tenor of the Freedom Convoy, which is about peace, love, freedom, and unity. So I'm so excited for later on today. And, all this week I was like, what should I do? Should I write a speech? What should my speech be about? And, I hemmed and hawed, and I thought, I'm just going to go talk. I'm just going to go, hang out with everybody, because it's not about me. It's about all of them and all of you. So, Megan, good morning. Good morning to, everybody on who's bouncing in and out of Instagram. It's difficult because the chat window is quite small on Instagram to keep in touch, keep track of who's who and who is saying what. And as well, everybody on Locals, you saw my little behind-the-scenes mess up before everybody else. So, good morning to everybody. And let's make sure not only the morning's great, but the rest of the day is awesome. And we're going to be positive to absolutely everybody in our sphere, in our lives that we encounter, all that sort of stuff. That's what I'm certainly going to try to do when I go to give my speech at the Freedom Rally. So a couple of things for those of you who don't know, who are watching on YouTube or Instagram. If you want to come to the book launch, you have to, we're trying to triage who gets tickets to the book launch, just because we know there's going to be a lot of demand. Which there's some reasons for that you'll find out later on. And so first tier will be people who are subscribed to honkingforfreedom.locals.com on the Locals platform. There's a few hundred people that are subscribed there. The second tier will be, or the second trio, whatever you want to call it, will be the people who subscribe to Substack. And there's about 100,000 people subscribed to my Substack now. And then after that, tickets will be made available for absolutely anybody. So I imagine they're going to go pretty quickly, especially if you live in Toronto. So, just make sure to be there. Also, we got a Honking For Freedom Telegram and Rumble. I'm trying to, spread the message around. I'm back on this Facebook thing. I'm not a fan of Facebook. But a lot of you are. So because of that, I've kind of reenacted my account. Hey, mate, what's up? It's one of my closest buddies down in Colombia. Good to see you, brother. So did you like the thumbnail? I'm sorry. Maybe that's a little clickbaity. I don't know. The reason I put, just so you know my thoughts, the reason I put the Steven Crowder thumbnail is, of all the interviews I did through the Freedom Convoy, that was by far the most enjoyable. Even though the camera is like right up in my face, I don't know, it was something on their end, because it was on my phone, it was as arm length, I couldn't go any further. So, but it was, 45 minutes after I had just slammed my car into a tree off the highway. It was the farthest thing from my mind, because I was just worried about doing the interview, getting there on time. We were trying to do it on Parliament Hill, because on Parliament Hill, it was great. There was a logging truck. I believe it was a Kenworth, and a full load of logs on the back of the truck parked right in front of Justin Trudeau's office. It was hysterical. It was a perfect backdrop, which is why I was trying to get back to Ottawa in time. So, what's the next most Canadian thing you could do? Do the interview from from Tim Hortons with my trucker hat. So it was absolutely amazing, and I loved it. Hey, Luch, what's up, brother? Hopefully you're going to come down, man. If you are, just let me know. I think you have my telephone number, but I'll text it to you again just in case if you need to get a hold of me to meet up. So anyways, yeah, that's about the Freedom Rally today, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. So a couple things I wanted to talk about. Firstly, Freedom Convoy is trending on Twitter again because we all live rent-free in Justin Trudeau's head and the rest of them and the people who are obsessed with identity politics and somehow have come to this conclusion that that freedom is, what did the Globe and Mail, I call it the Globe and Smell, their headline was during the Freedom Convoy that what was it, that freedom is another word for white supremacy or something like that. Like, that's your Canadian fake news. That's why they were all banned from our press conferences. And, example after example after example. There were more examples this week about, that guy, not Punchy McGregor, the other one, the guy from Akin, whatever his name is, from one of those fake news things, who was harassing Pierre Poilievre or Poilievre. By the way, I've heard now both pronunciations from people, mainstream, people in the party, whatever, so I have no idea how to pronounce this guy's name. So we'll just call him Pierre. So that was that attack on Pierre. He'd been leader for like 7 minutes, so they're harassing him. But Blackface has been flushing the country down a toilet and done every possible racist move you could do as an elected official, because he's the most racist person to ever hold office in Canadian history. Yet they say nothing. 7 years, we're still waiting for them to say something. But 7 minutes, Pierre is being attacked. It was hysterical. David Akin, yeah, okay, I guess that's his name. I don't know. I don't watch fake news, so I have no idea who these people are. They do tend to think they're important, which is quite funny. Anyways, couple things. First, the RCMP. This is back to the Freedom Convoy. This was released by another fake news agency, but it seemed to be legitimate because there were documents. Now, the whole narrative around it is completely false, of course, because we're all, racist, bigots, homophobes, whatever they want to call us. Anyways, they obtained some documents, or some documents were leaked, that the RCMP feared that some of their officers were going to cooperate with the Freedom Convoy. And what if I tell you they did in the very beginning? All the officers were great for the first couple of weeks, because leading up to us arriving in Ottawa, it was the city of Ottawa and the Ottawa police were the ones who helped stage all the trucks. They helped us park all the trucks so there wouldn't be obstructions to the city. It wouldn't be an occupation. Wonder where that word comes from. That might be a comment on my heritage from some people in government. And so all the trucks were put to ensure that the traffic flow was as unaffected as possible and that emergency vehicles would be able to navigate Ottawa, right? So because of that, because that pressure was alleviated before we even got there, the cops were super chill, man. Like there's a whole bunch of videos, type in Freedom Convoy, all sort of stuff. For the first couple of weeks, when the chief of police said this requires a political solution, this is not a policing matter sort of thing. Everybody is safe, the truckers are safe, all that sort of stuff. Truckers are most of them have families and kids and all that sort of stuff, right? They're not, despite what Central Casting might tell you, these nomads of the road. It was great. The vibe was amazing. The cops were awesome. And then one day, they just swapped out the police. I noticed because that was one of the days I had to speak on stage on the Sunday, and I had a broken ankle, so I had to either crutch or have people half carry me because it was all snow and stuff like that. And I noticed all of a sudden the police had been changed. They put in OPP, Doug Ford's police force, by the way, OPP. And all of a sudden the attitude, not of all of them, but a couple of them started to change. But for the first couple of weeks, everything was great. I mean, the cops were awesome. I was talking to a lot of cops because I know a lot of cops. I have police officers in my family, so I'm not, the culture of policing is not foreign to me, sort of thing. So anyways, they were very, it says, a document obtained by the RCMP, by CBC News, that's a stretch, let's say CBC, through an access of information request, shows the RCMP worried some of their own Mounties might cooperate with the Freedom Convoy protesters who, quote, barricaded the streets in downtown Ottawa for weeks. Now, what did I just tell you? The Ottawa police and the city of Ottawa worked with our team on the ground up to a week before we arrived to stage all the trucks in a way that there could be a peaceful protest. I mean, Wellington was shut down, but Wellington is a street that there's no houses, or nobody lives around there. That's just the street that goes in front of Parliament Hill. But so that's where the majority of trucks were. But the idea was, again, they're the ones who told us where to go. But it's interesting. This whole idea that they were worried that cops would be sympathetic to the Freedom Convoy. Why? Why would they do that? Why would cops be sympathetic to the Freedom Convoy protest? You know why? Because it's a protest. And as one cop said to me, who's really, really livid at the behavior of the brass in policing, who basically behave like political whores. He was really fed up because, as he said to me, I swore an oath to the Constitution, not to, part of my language is what he said, not to these dipshit political assholes. It's to the Constitution and not these parties who think they're in charge of it. That's not the way it works. Those were his words to me. And that seemed to be a general sentiment that's shared across a lot of police officers who are really sick and tired of them being turned into a political force, which is exactly, I mean, you talk about whores. Look at that deputy wannabe chief of the Ottawa Police, who does an amazing imitation of the Fuhrer with less hair. K9, Ottawa Police also secured the Convoy Road location for refueling trucks. Yep, that's, and everything was great, and then all of a sudden Tamara calls me, and she says, sorry for the sipping noise, and she says, yeah, we have a problem. I'm like, what's the problem? She said, they're not going to allow the fueling trucks in. Johnny told me he was trying to, and okay, fine. And then they all came to my room, and Johnny showed up. He's like, yeah, we can't get fuel to them. Like, what are we going to do? And one of them came up with the idea of, well, let's just do, if we have to for now, until we work this out with the Ottawa Police, let's just get jerry cans and bring enough fuel so at least they won't freeze overnight. Because remember, it was, between minus 20 and to minus, I don't know, I remember seeing minus 35 or feels like minus 35. It was really cold. So we didn't want any of the truckers to freeze. The Ottawa Police seem to have no problem with that. So, well, there you go. Canada, the country of human rights, right? So anyways, that's I think that's why so many police officers, look, initially they're going to be on duty, skeptical, concern, ensure that there's public safety. That's what they're there for. But once they realize that there's no risk to anybody, then okay, these guys are pretty good. And so many truckers and cops know each other from on the highway. There's a lot of camaraderie because, especially in rural areas where they both live on the highway together, sort of thing. And there's many stories of cops and truckers helping each other out, sort of thing. And that camaraderie was very evident in the Freedom Convoy. And to those cops who are good to us, I really appreciate it, and I thank you on behalf of all of us. Your spirit was amazing. So that's the first thing related to policing and the Freedom Convoy. And then there's something else that's come about. So apparently, Ottawa Police. What did I say about that whore who runs the Ottawa Police? Like, you talk about, you ever met like the short little kiss ass in school who just kisses ass of the popular kids hoping that they'll like them, and they never do? That's the little runt who runs the Ottawa Police. And so there's an Ottawa police officer, and this is the headline. This was a fake news article. And again, because there's documents, it's the document part that's legitimate, but the narrative, that's the part that we have to all start learning to ignore when they use these persuasion words, which is what I tend to do whenever I read them. But it says, Ottawa police officer accused of donating to Freedom Convoy faces misconduct charge. So she went on to this officer went on to either Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe, donated her $50, whatever it is, and now the authoritarian garbage that is running our political system, they're going to drill it into her and make an example of her. Firstly, what happened to empowering women police officers, right? Oh, we only empower women police officers who have the right political opinion. I got it. That sounds about right. So it says Constable, I think I can say her name because it's been in legacy media. So, and her picture is all over Twitter and stuff. Constable Christina Nielsen appeared for a disciplinary hearing on Thursday morning to face the misconduct charge under the Police Services Act after an investigation initiated by a chief's complaint. Really? So this is what we're going to do. This is why so many cops, a little secret, right now, so many of them hate the chiefs and deputy chiefs. It's because they've all become political whores. And they actually have a separate union. So there's a police union for police officers, and then there's a police union for chiefs and I think deputy chiefs. I think it's those two. And the way chiefs are now elected is the way they are hired is they have to apply to what's called a police services board. This is the way it works here. And the police services board are dominated. I mean, dominated, but they're suffering the creep, the political entryism and political creep from leftist activists. So, yeah, they can't defund the police, but what they can do is they can get activists on the police services board who will ensure they're going to hire a political whore who's going to do no policing and therefore weaken the police force. That's the state of policing in Canada right now, at least in Ontario, and I don't imagine it's different in amongst many other provinces. But and then it goes on to say, the notice goes on to say Nielsen knew or reasonably ought to have known that the money was being raised for the illegal occupation known as the Freedom Convoy. We're going to come back to that word, occupation, which is that false narrative. Brian, pseudo-leftists co-opted by the intelligence agency, left, right. Yeah, agreed. No, 100%. Anyways, I'll get to the comments later. If you have any comments, throw them in there, and because I didn't even jot down any comments today because I was scrambling to get this done. So it's interesting why. Notice the use of the word occupation. Why are they using occupation? Why are they trying to over and over hammer again that word occupation? Like that that prosecutor who was trying to keep Tamara Litch in jail. He kept saying over and over again, occupation, occupation, occupation. Might have something to do with his, personal beliefs on some issues, which is really concerning. But why? Because what it was a protest, or as I try to explain sometimes, a demonstration. It was a demonstration or a protest. But Protest, depending where you lie on the political spectrum, and also depending on the issue, a protest will have positive connotations. Pardon me, I have an itchy nose. Protest has positive connotations. So what are you going to do? Well, they need to smear the Freedom Convoy because freedom has positive connotations. Protest has positive connotations. So what they need to do is they need to smear the Freedom Convoy over and over and over and over again. Just like a certain government in the 1930s in Germany and a guy by the name of Goebbels, that's exactly what he would do over and over again. Just negative message, right? You say it over and over again, and eventually the recipient will expect it. That's what they're trying to do now, and they're using our legal system to do it. So we are facing this attack from the institutions trying to smear and persuade people who may not know either way because they're just not engaged in the convoy, for them just to hear the word occupation over and over again, because that's the worst word that they can attribute to it, because there was no violence, right? The violence, if anybody uses the word violence, then they're going to turn and they're going to see what the police did ultimately, and the horses trampling the woman and beating protesters and whatever. So they can't use the word violence. So they have to use something else. They have to use occupation. But this is intentional more than persuasion. Persuasion can be positive. This is just propaganda. And it just occurred to me that I don't know. I'm still playing with this idea. Are we right now, the citizens of Canada, and not just Canada, this sort of thing is happening all over the world. Are we in a propaganda war with our government? Or I wouldn't even say our government. That's not fair. With political extremists who have infected our government. Like Justin Trudeau's a political extremist. There is nothing mainstream about him. The way you know he's an extremist is he can never understand the opposing view. He never once would say, we're sympathetic, we understand that the Freedom Convoy people are frustrated, we understand that, we're going to meet and we're going to talk and negotiate and find common ground. He doesn't do that. That's what a politician is supposed to do. No, he's an extremist, and I would even argue now, given what happened in Ottawa, he's a violent extremist. He's a very, very dangerous violent, and it's him and that small cabal of 20 or so people that run the Liberal Party. They are violent extremists, and they have engaged in a propaganda war against Canadian citizens. Is that sunny ways, right? Is that Canada's back, right? Like, what happened to all the positivity and the sunny ways and whatever? Like, you really can't get more dark and angry and miserable than the Trudeau regime. Like, it's just pure darkness. And you're starting to see this with Dark Brandon in the United States when he did that speech in Philadelphia with the blood red lights behind him, like it was the First Order giving a speech. Like, the optics is hysterical. And then they try to use the word Dark Brandon as a positive. They don't understand that dark in that context is a pejorative. That's how up their own asses their heads are. And that's common with people in politics, especially people in messaging in politics. So we have violent extremists that are leading the government of Canada, and I would put Doug Ford in that basket as well, another violent extremist, because it was his police forces. And remember, the money that was blocked from Give, Send, Go, because there was an injunction against that money that hadn't even come into Canada, that was Doug Ford who did that. That wasn't Justin Trudeau, that was Doug Ford. So it's the two of them, right? Daniel calls him Fat Trudeau. I think that's too much of a compliment. Trudeau, at least to some people, is somewhat likable. But those are the two violent extremists, if you live in Ontario, that are running our governments. Now, what's the solution? The solution is not to bring more violence, right? The solution is not to be even overly aggressive. The solution is to get the people around you just to understand over time, slowly, what is happening. That's it, right? And to be like the lone person in the world to screaming, this is what's going on, it's going to be a slow, gradual thing. And I think Trudeau's career is done. He's over. He's basically out of office. He's lame duck as it is right now. And the next one will have to be Doug Ford. Will have to be replaced. He needs to go because it's the same regime. With Doug Ford, the difference is it's more insidious because it's if you're on the political right, it's right wing, blah 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 blah, right wing bullshit, but more left wing policy than Kathleen Wynne. Like he's worse. He's worse. So I think we got to focus on having the short term plan, which will be the next election, and hopefully Trudeau will be out of office. I think that's that's already decided at this point. There's so much negative branding around Trudeau, and but we can't ignore what Doug Ford did to all those truckers. You know, there were 39 trucking companies because of Doug Ford who lost their trucking licenses. So Mr. Open for Business, how many jobs were lost? How many companies were crushed? How many families are now struggling to feed themselves and trying to figure out, how to keep their kids in school and all that sort of stuff that you go on and on about because it's nothing but mierda coming out of your mouth. I mean, this is why I think the mask mandate should be limited and specifically to politicians because nothing but shit comes from out of their mouths. So we need to be protected, so they need to all wear masks. That's the mask mandate that I want to support moving forward. That's my mask mandate policy. Anyways, but we cannot forget that this is the political class, and just like when we talk about what happened in the Freedom Convoy and how it eventually ended, and the potential sabotaging of the Freedom Convoy, which caused many people enough upheaval and distraught in their life. Who was behind that, and did they have ties to Doug Ford or Justin Trudeau or Jason Kenney or other political parties or activists or any of these? There's a lot of this that goes on in Canada. There's people who just make a lot of money by being fixers for political parties. And maybe that was part of how we got sabotaged in Ottawa. I don't know. Okay, so a couple of questions or comments here. Denise, good morning, and thank you for updating us, partners of the Peaceful Trucker Convoy protest. My pleasure, and don't thank me. Thank all of you guys and all those truckers that were out there for 3 weeks in the freezing cold all day long. And everybody who, there's some people, a lot of people came out, but they couldn't stay. They had to go back. They had different contracts, whatever. And I get it. There was 2 days. I put this in the book. I'll talk about the book in a second. That I had when I first came to Ottawa. I had somebody who came with me for the weekend, so I had to drop that person off back to Toronto on the Monday. And I then got in my truck, had to do, because I have a contract as an owner-operator, even though it's, semi-regularly, they asked me, they were overloaded. So I went to Elmer, New York, and then to Pennsylvania, and then came back. So Monday drove there, and basically by, I think it was Tuesday morning, I was driving, Tuesday or Wednesday morning, whichever, I think it was Tuesday morning, when I had the car accident, and that was Stephen Crowder. So anyways, left the convoy, dropped my friend off, go back, get in the truck, do all my safety checks, all that sort of, go to the load, pick up the trailer, and get on the highway. I go across the border, and okay, now I'm in the U.S., and what do I see? It was amazing. I crossed at Fort Erie, and I got onto I-90, and I don't know, maybe about 5 minutes in, just getting towards the outskirts of Ottawa, and there was a highway overpass. And what do I see? I see a group of Americans with American and Canadian flags and signs saying, "We love you, truckers," in the U.S. I couldn't believe it. It was so amazing. I whipped out my phone and, clumsily took a picture of the group. And then this week, I was in a Twitter space with some, was it a Bitcoin Twitter space? I don't know. I get invited to these. I think it was. And one of the people there lives in, upstate New York, and then tells me, "Oh yeah, I went on the overpasses to thank the truckers during the convoy." I'm like, wow, I think I might have taken a picture of you. That might have been one of the people there, Small world, or a crack in the simulation code if you buy into that stuff. Anyways, there's so many stories about this convoy, and that's why, we tried to get the book as concise as possible, and we got it down to just under 50,000 words. We've done we're doing, the last chapter is just about done, and then we got to do a reread of that, and then it goes into the next phase of it, the marketing, branding, all that sort of stuff, and structure, and the book launch, and all that sort of stuff. But I can tell you, and it's not my bias, I'm just telling you, the book is amazing. And it's amazing because I had a good friend who is a published author. It taught me, the ins and outs of how you write a book and how it all works, explain book proposals and all that sort of stuff. And his skills have been invaluable in telling the story and trying to be as objective as possible, because when it's your own story, you always want to give just your perspective. But we interviewed some other people who were involved in the Freedom Convoy. We interviewed the people who are involved in the Bitcoin to allow them to tell their story. So there's a chapter on the media. There's a couple of chapters on the crossing Canada, what that was like, and then some of the craziness that went on towards the end and during, by the way, in the middle. It's quite amazing. I promise you're gonna love it, and I will let you all know the title pretty soon once we get the final mock-up for the book cover, which is also amazing. Special thanks to a certain person, we'll talk about him more, who contributed the photo for the book cover, which, I don't know, it hit me emotionally. I saw it and I thought, that's it. That moment captures the entire essence of what the Freedom Convoy was. Anyways, okay. So Trauma Nurses says, also word illegal is important. Yeah, she's talking about the quote about the occupation. If I were to defend this officer, I would insist that the protest must be first be proven as illegal. Yeah, Joseph Neuberger and Diana talk about that on their podcast, which I'm involved in, the production, Not on Record. And they talk about they always fight when they go into a case that the complainant, because there's a lot of false claims that they deal with, the complainant is not to be referred to as a victim, because that has yet to be determined. It's not determined they're a victim until there's a guilty party. Until then, there's a complainant and a defendant. So, but yeah, words matter, right? And then Trauma Nurse goes on to say, protests are illegal. Anything that stipulates that protests may only last a certain, okay, there's nothing that stipulates that the protests may only last a certain number of days before it's considered illegal and an occupation. Sure. Agreed. Sonia, good morning. Good morning, Sonia. Oh yeah, here I can put these, I forgot I can put these things up there. Remember, I'm still learning how to do this in real time. I do no preparation. I put together some notes and some ideas, but all the technical aspects, I'm just going to learn along with you guys. And Trauma Nurse says, please also release the book on Audible. Yes, we have something, not only that, but I've already have requests for it to be in multiple languages, because if you noticed, the Freedom Convoy was covered all over the world, and I remember when my inbox got flooded with new interview requests, and I got interview requests from like every fake news agency all over the planet. BBC, ABC in Australia, I-24. I don't know what the main news sources in Japan, but just by country, Japan, Austria, Australia, Germany, Spain, France, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, obviously the U.S., England, Ireland, Russia, RT, just like every country in the world. News sources were sending invites to talk, and so I was really selective because I wanted to bias towards alternative media because I knew they would tell the story. And even the media you think that's on let's say your side that has your worldview, sometimes it's a great experience that you can get your message out, and you can get the message out. I could get the message out about the Freedom Convoy, but then there are other ones that were horrible. Like there was I don't want to say who, but I did a couple of interviews with somebody who was quite big, huge audience, and it's just like. I don't know if there was a disconnect within his staff or himself, but he had no idea what was going on, no idea who these people were, and just got all the facts mistaken and stuff. And it was for like a 2-minute segment that I had to sit there and wait for 45 minutes to prepare for. Like I didn't have 45 minutes. I had so much other things I needed to deal with at the time. So anyways. More on that. I promise there's going to be many stories. And I think the first story will be the book. That's the first thing. And we're already talking about something in addition to that book. So if you want to come to the book launch, it'll be sometime this fall, early winter. And it'll be in Toronto. I have a request to do one in the U.S., so if you're in the southern U.S., hold on. There might be something there as well. And follow me on Substack, BJdichter.substack.com. On locals here, it's honkingforfreedom.locals.com. So go there if you want to be on the list, the first list of this whole triage to have access to get tickets to the event. It will be a lot of fun, I promise you. And it'll be right in downtown Toronto. Some people call it Midtown. I call it downtown. And want as many of you to come out there. It'll be great. And if you can make it today, come on down to Queen's Park. That will be the next World Freedom Rally. It's going to be amazing. These people have been protesting every week for over 2 years. And so periodically, I think a few times a year, maybe 4 times a year, they'll have a World Freedom Rally. They'll coordinate with rallies from all over the world and have this one massive protest, which the fake news refuses to talk about, which is, why do you think they refuse to talk about it? Because who's going to be against a protest for greater expansion of freedom and love and peace, right? It's like we've become the new Woodstock. It's completely crazy what's going on in the world, but we're gonna fix it. It's gonna take time. And anyways, I gotta go. I gotta run. I gotta start getting ready. If anybody has any other questions, 1, 2, 3, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna shut it down. See you all at between 12 and 1 o'clock this afternoon if you're around. And if you're not, thank you for the love and support. Hope all the best for us. And I will see you all again